"Lock the gate," Shade said coldly. "No daughter of this house will disgrace my own child and then sleep under my roof." Zena folded her arms and laughed. "Let her stand outside till morning," she said. "Maybe then she will learn that she is not better than me." Amina stood frozen in the compound, clutching her graduation gown to her chest as the heavy night wind pushed dust across the ground. "Stepmother, please," she whispered. "Tomorrow is my graduation." But Shade's face did not soften. Instead, she stepped forward, snatched the key from the door, and slammed it shut from inside. The iron gate clicked. The wooden front door closed. And just like that, on the most important night of her life, Amina was left outside like a stranger. The same house she had swept, the same house she had cooked in, the same house she had prayed in, the same house where she had sacrificed her childhood so her family could survive. Now it had rejected her. The sky growled with distant thunder, the wind grew stronger, and Amina realized with horror that she had nowhere to go. Why would a mother lock her own stepdaughter outside on the night before her graduation? Why did Zena hate her sister's success so much? And what exactly did Baba Tunde do the next morning that left the entire village speechless? The answers began many years earlier, in a family where love and jealousy lived under the same roof. But before we continue, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another powerful African story filled with emotion, betrayal, and life lessons. Now, let us begin. Many years earlier, before that painful night, Baba Tunde was one of the most respected carpenters in Olanbi village. He was not the richest man. He did not own the biggest land, but he had something many people admired. He had dignity. He worked with his hands, he kept his word, and he loved his family deeply. His first wife, Aduni, was a gentle woman with a quiet smile. Together they had one daughter. Her name was Amina. From the day she was born, Baba Tunde treated her like a blessing sent from heaven. He carried her on his shoulders through the market. He saved the softest piece of meat for her during supper. And whenever she fell asleep, he would sit beside her mat and whisper, "My daughter will go further than I ever did." But life is sometimes cruel even to good people. When Amina was only 8 years old, her mother fell sick. At first, everyone thought it was just tiredness. Then the tiredness became weakness. The weakness became pain. And before anyone truly understood how serious it was, Aduni was gone. The day she was buried, Amina cried until she could no longer stand. She held her father's wrapper and begged, "Please don't let them cover Mama." Baba Tunde's heart broke into pieces. From that day, father and daughter clung to each other. But grief does not stop hunger. Sorrow does not pay school fees. And loneliness can push people into desperate choices. 2 years later, after pressure from relatives and elders, Baba Tunde remarried. The woman he married was named Sade. At first, she seemed kind. She cooked hot meals. She greeted neighbors with respect. She told everyone she would love Amina like her own child. And for a short time, it looked like peace had returned. Not long after the marriage, Sade gave birth to a baby girl. They named her Zena. The household celebrated. Baba Tunde was happy. Amina was happy too. She danced around the baby's mat and told everyone, "I will protect my little sister." And at the beginning, she meant every word. She carried Zena on her back. She washed her clothes. She rocked her to sleep when Sade was tired. If the baby cried in the night, it was often Amina who woke first. People in the village praised her. "That girl has the heart of a mother," they would say. But praise can become poison in the ears of insecure people. As the years passed, Sade began to notice something she did not like. Whenever visitors came to the house, they admired Amina's calmness. Whenever elders spoke about manners, they used Amina as an example. Whenever teachers visited, they praised Amina's intelligence. And whenever Babatunde looked at his first daughter, the pride in his eyes was impossible to miss. Sade smiled on the outside, but inside, something dark began to grow. At first, it was small, very small, just a passing irritation, just a little discomfort, just a quiet thought that said, "Why is everyone always talking about Amina?" But jealousy never stays small when it is fed, and Sade fed it often. As the two girls grew older, the difference between them became clearer. Amina was disciplined. She woke before sunrise. She fetched water. She helped her father in the workshop. She attended school. Then she returned home and helped cook before reading under the dim lantern at night. Even when she was tired, she kept going. Even when she lacked books, she kept studying. Even when rain leaked through the roof and soaked her notebooks, she kept trying. She had a dream. She wanted to become a nurse. Not because she wanted status, not because she wanted to leave the village and boast, but because she still remembered the helplessness of watching her mother fade away. She remembered the doctors. She remembered the medicines they could not afford. She remembered wishing she was old enough to save her. And deep inside, she made a promise to herself. One day, I will help the sick. One day, no little girl near me will feel as helpless as I felt. Zina, on the other hand, grew up surrounded by excuses. If she refused to sweep, Sade defended her. If she insulted an elder, Sade said she was misunderstood. If she performed badly in school, Sade blamed the teachers. Slowly, Zina learned a dangerous lesson. That effort was optional. That consequences were for other people. That tears could erase mistakes. That entitlement was a normal way to live. When the girls became teenagers, the comparisons became impossible to ignore. At community gatherings, women would say, "Amina is so respectful." At church, elders would whisper, "That child has a bright future." At school, teachers would tell Babatunde, "Do everything you can to support her education." Each compliment was like salt on Zina's wound. One evening, after hearing neighbors praise Amina again, Zina entered her room and threw her sandals against the wall. "I hate it!" she shouted. Sade followed her inside and closed the door. "What happened?" "Don't pretend you don't know," Zina snapped. "Everywhere I go, it is Amina this, Amina that. Is she the only girl in this village?" Sade's jaw tightened. "You are my daughter," she said quietly. "You do not need to compete with anyone." But Zina was already crying. "No, I am tired of watching her shine while everyone ignores me." A wise mother would have corrected her. A loving mother would have said, "Then build your own life. Work harder. Be better." But Sade did not say that. Instead, she sat beside her daughter and whispered words that would damage both of them for years. "You are not less than Amina," she said. "That girl only gets attention because people don't know how things really are." "What things?" Zina asked. Sade looked away. "Never mind. Just know this. Nothing must ever make you feel small in your own father's house." From that day forward, mother and daughter began to see Amina not as family, but as a threat. And once that thought settled in their hearts, even Amina's kindness began to offend them. If she helped someone, they called it pretense. If she smiled, they called it pride. If she succeeded, they called it luck. Nothing she did was innocent in their eyes anymore. Life in Babatunde's house was not easy. Money was often short. Some weeks, there was enough soup but little gari. Other weeks, there was enough rice but no meat. There were nights when Babatunde returned home exhausted, his palms rough and bleeding from work, yet his face still fell when he saw school bills on the table. But if hardship broke him, he never showed it fully. He would wipe his face, sit down, and ask the girls about their studies. Amina always answered honestly. Zina always answered carelessly. When Amina completed secondary school with excellent results, the whole village celebrated her. Her teachers urged Babatunde to let her continue. "There is a nursing college in the city," one of them said. "If she is given the chance, she will do well." Babatunde wanted that for her with all his heart. But the fees were far beyond what he could easily afford. That night, he sat outside under the moon, silent for a long time. Amina came and sat beside him. "Baba," she said softly, "if it is too difficult, I can wait a year." He turned to her immediately. "No." "But—" "No, my daughter. Poverty has already stolen enough from us. I will not allow it to steal your future, too." The next morning, Babatunde sold a piece of land he had inherited from his own father. Relatives criticized him. Neighbors shook their heads. Some said he was foolish to invest so much in a girl. Others said a village girl in a city college would only return proud. But Babatunde ignored them. He paid the admission. He bought the forms. He borrowed more money for transportation and supplies. And on the day Amina left for nursing school, he placed his hands on her head and blessed her. "Do not forget where you come from," he said. Amina cried as she hugged him. "I will make you proud." And she meant it. In the city, life was hard, very hard. She studied late into the night. She took small tailoring jobs on weekends. She sometimes skipped meals to buy books. She wore old sandals until the soles thinned. When others rested, she revised. When others complained, she endured. And every term when she returned home, she still brought gifts. Groundnuts for Zina, head tie for Sade, wood polish for her father's tools. She did not have much, but what little she had, she shared. Did Sade appreciate it? No. Did Zina soften? No. In fact, the more Amina advanced, the more bitter they became. Zina had dropped out of school after repeated failures. She spent her days moving from one friend's house to another, gossiping, taking pictures, chasing appearances, and blaming everyone else for her lack of direction. And every time Amina returned home carrying books, purpose, and quiet confidence, Zina felt humiliated. It did not matter that Amina never insulted her. It did not matter that Amina never boasted. Her existence itself felt offensive to those who had chosen not to grow. Part 4. The News That Changed Everything. In Amina's final year at nursing college, something happened that lifted the entire family's hopes. She was selected as one of the top graduating students. Not only that, but a medical foundation had taken interest in her record. If she performed well during her final practical and graduated with distinction, she would receive sponsorship for advanced training in the capital. It was the kind of opportunity people only heard about in stories. When Babatunde received the call, he sat down in shock. Then he began to cry. Not loud tears, just the slow, trembling tears of a man who had fought too many silent battles. "My daughter," he said, "my daughter is really going somewhere." He told the whole village. He told customers. He told the pastor. He told the chief's messenger. Even strangers passing his workshop heard the news before the day ended. He was proud. Proud in a way that made his back straighter. Proud in a way that made old pain feel worthwhile. He announced that after Amina's graduation, the family would hold a small celebration. Not a lavish event, just food, music, and Thanksgiving. People applauded the idea, but inside the house, the atmosphere was not the same. When Sade heard about the scholarship possibility, her face changed. When Zina heard that Amina would likely leave for the capital and build a career, something ugly flashed in her eyes. That night, as they lay awake, Zina whispered into the darkness, "If she leaves, everybody will say we are nothing beside her." Sade said nothing at first. Then she asked, "What exactly did your father say?" Zina turned toward her. He said after graduation, he wants to hand Amina the new plot documents so she can build a future there one day. Sade sat upright. "What?" "Yes, I heard him talking to Uncle Femi. He said Amina has carried this family's hope and deserves security." For several moments, Sade did not breathe. That plot was valuable, very valuable. She had always imagined it would belong to Zina. Now, another fear entered her heart. What if Amina's success changed everything? What if Baba Tunde gave her more authority? What if the girl she had always resented became the most important child in the family? No, she could not bear it. She simply could not bear it. A few days before graduation, Amina returned home from the city with her final documents, her gown, and a tired but hopeful smile. Baba Tunde welcomed her warmly. He slaughtered a chicken, even though money was tight. He told neighbors, "My daughter is home. My nurse is home." Amina laughed and begged him not to embarrass her. For the first time in months, the house was filled with excitement. Tailors came to adjust her dress. Her classmates called. The pastor's wife brought fruit. Even little children gathered by the window just to see the beautiful black gown with its bright sash. Everyone said the same thing: God has done it. But not everyone in that house was celebrating. One afternoon, Amina went to the market to buy a few things for the ceremony. While she was away, Zina entered her room and opened her bag. Inside were the graduation invitation card, a sealed envelope from the Scholarship Foundation, and a small purse containing transport money. Zina picked up the envelope and stared at it. Sade entered behind her. "What are you doing?" Zina held up the envelope. "This is what will carry her beyond us." Sade's face hardened. For a moment, mother and daughter looked at each other without speaking. Then, Sade said the words that pushed everything too far. "If she does not appear at that ceremony, none of this moves forward." Zina slowly smiled. "You mean?" Sade lowered her voice. "She must be stopped." At first, the plan sounded impossible. Then, it sounded wicked. Then, after enough bitterness, it started to sound reasonable to them. That is how evil often works. Not all at once, not suddenly, but little by little, until something terrible begins to feel justified. They decided they would not hurt Amina physically. At least, that is what they told themselves. They only wanted to disgrace her, delay her, break her confidence, make her miss the ceremony, make her lose the scholarship opportunity, and most of all, remind her that she was not untouchable. That night, Sade pretended to be kind. She asked Amina about school. She even offered to help iron the dress Amina planned to wear under her gown. Amina was surprised, but grateful. Perhaps, she thought, things were finally changing. Perhaps the years of distance were ending. She had no idea she was sitting in the middle of a trap. On the evening before graduation, the house was lively. Neighbors stopped by. Women discussed the next day's transportation. Baba Tunde went to another village to collect money from a customer who had delayed payment for weeks. He wanted extra cash so Amina would not lack anything the next morning. Before leaving, he told everyone, "I will return before midnight." Amina spent the evening helping set plates, greeting visitors, and answering calls from classmates. She was happy. Nervous, but happy. This was the moment she had dreamed about for years. After the visitors left, Shade said, "Amina, you forgot the wrapper I asked you to collect from Mama Bose. Go quickly before she sleeps." Amina glanced at the time. It was late, but she did not want trouble. So she picked up her scarf and went. Mama Bose lived only a short walking distance away. When Amina arrived, the elderly woman looked confused. "Wrapper? My daughter, nobody sent me any wrapper." Amina frowned slightly. "Stepmother said—" Mama Bose shook her head. "No one told me anything." Amina felt a strange uneasiness in her chest. Still, she smiled politely and began walking home. Halfway back, the wind changed. Clouds gathered. Dust rose from the road. By the time she reached the compound, the first drops of rain were already falling. She rushed to the door and knocked. No answer. She knocked again. Nothing. "Auntie Shade! Zina! Please open the door!" From inside, she heard movement. Then laughter. Amina froze. Her hands began to tremble. She tried the handle. Locked. She ran to the side entrance. Also locked. Then she hurried to the gate. Bolted from inside. Her heart began to pound. "Auntie Shade, please, what is this?" At last, the window opened. Shade appeared, her expression cold and unfamiliar. "You can stay outside tonight," she said. Amina stared at her in disbelief. "What?" "You heard me. Stepmother, tomorrow is my graduation." "And?" Amina's voice cracked. "I need to rest. My clothes are inside. My documents are inside." Shade leaned against the window. "Then maybe you should have thought about that before behaving as if this house belongs to you." Amina could not understand what was happening. "I have done nothing wrong." Zina's face appeared beside her mother's. "That is exactly your problem," she said mockingly. "You walk around acting perfect. Tomorrow, everyone will clap for you as if you were the only girl who matters. Not this time." Rain began falling harder. Amina stepped closer to the wall, trying to shield herself. "Please," she begged, "if I have offended you, we can talk in the morning. Just let me in." Shade's eyes narrowed. "No daughter of mine will keep living in another woman's child's shadow." The words landed like stones. Amina's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Zina laughed again. "Sleep outside, future nurse." Then the window shut. Amina pounded on the door until her palms hurt. She called their names until her throat tightened. But nobody answered again. The rain grew heavier. The compound floor turned muddy. Her graduation gown, the one she had carried with such joy, became damp in her shaking hands. For the first time in years, Amina felt not just rejected, she felt erased. At first, she remained near the doorway, hoping they would open after a while. They did not. Then, thunder cracked across the sky, and Amina ran toward the small shed near the back fence. But even there, rain blew in through the sides. She hugged herself tightly and tried not to cry. Tried not to imagine the next morning. tried not to think about her documents inside the house, tried not to think about the scholarship envelope, tried not to think about how tired she would be standing in front of officials after spending the night in the cold. But pain does not disappear just because we command it to. Eventually, tears came. Hot tears, humiliating tears. She cried for her dead mother. She cried for every insult she had swallowed in silence. She cried for the little girl who had loved that house with all her heart. At some point, footsteps approached from the road. Amina stiffened in fear. But it was only an elderly widow named Mama Ireti returning from a prayer vigil. "Amina?" the old woman gasped. "What are you doing outside?" Amina quickly wiped her face. "It's nothing, Mama." Mama Ireti looked from the wet gown to the locked gate and understood enough. "Come with me," she said firmly. Amina hesitated. "I don't want to trouble you." "You are already in trouble, my daughter. Come." Too exhausted to argue, Amina followed her through the rain to a tiny one-room house at the edge of the village. Mama Ireti gave her a dry wrapper, hot water, and a mat near the wall. Then she sat beside her and asked gently, "What happened?" Amina could no longer pretend. She told her everything, not just about the lockout, but about years of quiet rejection, the favoritism, the contempt, the way she was tolerated but never fully embraced. Mama Ireti listened in silence. When Amina finished, the old woman held her hand and said, "Some people do not recognize gold even when it is in their hands. That does not reduce its value." Amina bowed her head and wept again. That night, she barely slept. Each time her eyes closed, fear woke her again. What if she missed the ceremony? What if her documents had been hidden? What if Baba Tunde returned home and believed whatever story Sade told him? What if everything she worked for ended in humiliation? Outside, the rain continued. Inside, dawn took too long to arrive. Shortly before dawn, Baba Tunde returned from his trip. His clothes were dusty, his body ached, but he was smiling because he had finally collected enough money to cover the family's transport, Amina's breakfast, and a small surprise gift he had bought on the way back. As soon as he entered the compound, something felt wrong. Too quiet, too tense. He noticed muddy footprints near the door. He noticed Amina's slippers missing. Then he stepped inside and asked, "Where is my daughter?" Sade, who had been waiting for this moment, quickly answered, "She left in anger." Baba Tunde frowned. "Left? Why?" "She insulted Zina," Sade said. "Then she stormed out and said she would not stay where she is not respected." Baba Tunde stared at her. "That does not sound like Amina." Zina crossed her arms. "Well, it happened." "Where are her things?" Sade swallowed. "She took what she needed." But as Baba Tunde moved toward Amina's room, he saw at once that this was a lie. Her trunk was still there. Her shoes were still there. Some of her folded clothes were still on the bed, and the small purse she depended on had been opened and carelessly pushed aside. His eyes darkened. What happened here? Nobody answered. Then, from outside the compound, a young boy's voice called out, "Baba Tunde! Baba Tunde!" It was Kunle, the neighbor's son. He ran in, breathless. "I saw Amina last night." The room went silent. Baba Tunde stepped forward. "Where?" Kunle pointed toward the road. "She was knocking on the door. I heard her crying. Then Mama Ireti took her away because rain was beating her." For a moment, Baba Tunde could not move. His mind refused to accept what he had heard. Slowly, very slowly, he turned toward Sade and Zina. Their faces betrayed them before their mouths could. Babatunde's voice became low and dangerous. "You locked Amina outside?" Sade tried to speak. "It is not as—" "Did you lock my daughter outside?" No one who knew Babatunde had ever heard that tone from him before. The room seemed to shrink. Finally, Zina muttered, "It was only one night." The slap that landed on the table made everyone jump. Babatunde had struck the wooden table so hard that one of the cups fell over. "One night?" he thundered. "On the night before her graduation?" Sade attempted a defense. "She needed to be humbled." Before she could finish, Babatunde grabbed his cap and stormed out of the house. He did not wait. He did not argue further. He went straight to Mama Ireti's house. When he saw Amina sitting there in a borrowed wrapper, eyes swollen from crying, something inside him cracked. "My daughter," he whispered. Amina looked up. The moment she saw him, she tried to be strong, tried to smile, tried to say, "Baba, I am fine." But the words never came. She burst into tears instead. Babatunde dropped to his knees beside her and pulled her into his arms. "I am sorry," he kept saying. "I am sorry. I did not know. I did not know." He had protected the wrong peace for too many years. He had tolerated too much. He had seen signs and chosen patience. He had believed silence would keep the family together. Now he understood. Silence had not preserved the family. It had endangered the child who loved him most. Most people thought Babatunde would do what many men in his position often do. They thought he would beg Amina to return home. They thought he would settle the matter privately. They thought he would excuse Sade's cruelty in the name of family honor. They thought he would say, "Let us not shame ourselves before the village." But Babatunde had reached his limit. He looked at Amina and said, "Go and prepare. You will graduate today." She blinked through tears. "My documents." "I will handle it." "My clothes." "I will handle it." "My transport." "I said I will handle it." There was something in his voice that morning she had never heard before. Not just anger, not just pain. Decision. Cold, irreversible decision. Within minutes, Babatunde sent Kunle to call 2 elders, the pastor and the village chief's messenger. Then he returned to his house. Sade was pacing. Zina was frightened now. Neither of them expected what followed. Babatunde walked into the sitting room carrying the deed file for the family's new plot of land. He also carried a small metal box where he kept important savings and papers. He placed both items on the table. Then he said, "Call the neighbors. Call the elders. Let them all come." Sade's face turned pale. "What are you doing?" "What I should have done long ago." Within a short time, people began gathering in the compound. Men from the workshop, women from nearby houses, curious children, the pastor, 2 family elders, even the chief's messenger came. Everyone assumed there had been an emergency. No one expected judgment. When the compound was full, Babatunde stood in the center and spoke clearly. "All of you know my daughter Amina graduates this morning." The crowd nodded. "Last night, while I was away working to support that graduation, my wife and her daughter locked Amina outside in the rain." Gasps spread through the compound. Sade covered her face. Zina looked at the ground. Baba Tunde continued. They denied her shelter. They humiliated her. They tried to make her miss the ceremony that she has suffered for years to reach. No one interrupted. Not even the boldest gossip. Today I will not hide this evil under family cloth, he said, because too many good children suffer in silence, while adults protect wickedness with respectability. The words cut through the air. Then came the part nobody expected. Baba Tunde lifted the deed file. This land was meant to remain in my care for a while longer, he said. But from this morning, before witnesses, I transfer it to Amina. A collective murmur swept through the crowd. He opened the metal box. These savings, kept for her next step in life, will also be placed directly in her name. Sade looked up in horror. Baba Tunde! But he was not finished. I also declare before these witnesses that until I see genuine repentance and change, Sade and Zina will no longer make decisions in this house over Amina's life, property, or future. The village fell completely silent. Then he said the sentence people repeated for weeks afterward. If my own roof cannot protect a hard-working child, then that roof has no right to control her destiny. Shock spread everywhere. Some women covered their mouths. Some men shook their heads. Others whispered, "He has spoken the truth." Sade rushed forward. "You cannot disgrace me like this!" Baba Tunde faced her. "And what did you do last night? Was that honor?" She had no answer. Zina burst into tears, but the tears could not undo what had been exposed. Baba Tunde called the pastor and one elder closer. He handed them the file. "You will witness this properly after the ceremony." Then he turned to Amina, who had just arrived in fresh clothes borrowed from a kind neighbor, and still looked stunned by what she was hearing. "Go and graduate," he said. "Go and stand where God has carried you." Amina began crying again. Not from pain this time, from the overwhelming weight of finally being defended. There was no time to waste. The ceremony was in town, and the road was not short. Baba Tunde hired the fastest motorcycle rider available and sent for Amina's class representative by phone. By grace, one of her lecturers had brought extra copies of identification documents needed for the final check-in. A classmate arranged a spare in her blouse. Another helped steam her gown when she arrived. It seemed as though help appeared from every direction once the truth was no longer hidden. That is another lesson life teaches. Sometimes breakthrough begins the moment shame is exposed. By the time Amina reached the college hall, the ceremony had already begun. Rows of parents filled the seats. Music played. Names were being called. At the entrance, she paused. Her hands trembled. Her eyes were still puffy. For a moment, she feared everyone would notice her brokenness. Then she heard a voice behind her. "My daughter." It was Baba Tunde. He had come too. Breathing hard, sweat on his forehead, dust on his sandals, but smiling. He held out the small surprise gift he had bought the night before. A wristwatch. Not expensive, not flashy, but polished carefully. "I wanted to give you this before the ceremony," he said, "because time will carry you far, and I want you never to forget that every hour you suffered was not wasted." Amina stared at the watch and burst into tears. People nearby looked on emotionally. She hugged him tightly. Then her name was called. "Amina Tunde." The hall erupted in applause as she walked forward. Some clapped because they knew her academic record. Some clapped because they loved her story. Some clapped because excellence deserves witness, but only Amina and Baba Tunde fully understood what it had cost her to take those steps. When she reached the stage, the dean smiled warmly. Top distinction in community nursing. The applause grew louder. Then another announcement followed. Recipient of the Rising Health Leaders Sponsorship Award. The hall stood to its feet. Amina covered her mouth in shock. She had done it. Not despite hardship alone, but through it, beyond it, above it. And as she looked into the crowd, she saw Baba Tunde crying openly, one hand lifted in gratitude to heaven. That image remained in many hearts for years. A father who had finally chosen courage over silence. A daughter who had refused to let bitterness poison her future. And a moment no cruelty could steal. Back in the village, news spread faster than fire in dry grass. People spoke about the public declaration. They spoke about the transferred land. They spoke about how Baba Tunde had rebuked injustice in his own home before witnesses. Some criticized him. He should have settled it privately. Others disagreed. No, if he had hidden it again, they would have repeated it. The truth was uncomfortable. Many families saw themselves in that story. Too many stepchildren had been silenced. Too many hard-working daughters had been sabotaged. Too many fathers had chosen peace at the expense of justice. Now one man had broken that pattern in public. When Amina and Baba Tunde returned from the ceremony later that evening, villagers lined the road to congratulate them. Women ululated. Children ran beside them. Men shook Baba Tunde's hand. And for once, nobody could pretend not to see who Amina was. She was not a burden. She was not an outsider. She was not a temporary guest in another woman's home. She was a daughter, a rightful daughter. A daughter whose labor, dignity, and suffering had finally been honored. Inside the house, however, the mood was very different. Shad sat in silence. Zina could not stop crying. For the first time, consequences had arrived and stayed. Not hidden, not softened, not delayed. Real consequences. That night, Baba Tunde spoke very little. But when he did, his words were firm. "This house will not continue the old way," he said. "Nobody here will mistreat Amina again. If that cannot be accepted, then anyone who cannot live in justice may leave." Shad looked at him as if seeing a stranger. In truth, she was. Because something had changed in him. He was still the same man, still hard-working, still dignified, still calm. But now, he was also awake. Days passed. Amina prepared to leave for the capital for the next phase of her training. Visitors came often. Some brought food. Some brought blessings. Some simply wanted to encourage her. Yet beneath the joy was still a wound. Success had not erased the pain of that night. She still remembered the locked door, the laughter, the rain, the helplessness. And some wounds do not disappear just because life moves forward. One evening, as sunset painted the compound orange, Zina approached her slowly. For once, there was no arrogance in her steps, no pride in her voice, just shame. "Amina," she said quietly. Amina turned but said nothing. Zina's eyes filled with tears. "I was wrong." Silence. I kept blaming you for the life I did not build for myself. Still, Amina said nothing. Zina wiped her face. Every time people praised you, I felt smaller. But instead of growing, I chose to hate you. Instead of changing, I tried to stop you. Her voice broke. I am sorry. Amina looked at her for a long time. Then she asked, Are you sorry because Father exposed you? Or because you understand what you did? The question hit hard. Zina lowered her head. At first, I was sorry because I got caught, she admitted. But after seeing you on that stage, after seeing Father cry, I understood something. I was not fighting you. I was fighting the truth about myself. Amina's expression softened only slightly. That kind of honesty is rare and painful. Later that same night, Shad came too. Her apology was slower, heavier, harder to speak. I failed you, she said. Not, if I offended you. Not, it was a misunderstanding. Not, you know how women can be. No. She said the real words. I failed you. Amina listened silently as Shad continued. When you were younger, I told myself I would love you. But the more people praised you, the more I let insecurity turn me into someone ugly. I punished you for the goodness God placed in you. Tears rolled down her cheeks. You did not deserve that. Amina's own eyes grew wet. Because sometimes the deepest pain is not caused by enemies. It is caused by people who had every chance to love us and chose otherwise. She did not embrace Sade immediately. She did not pretend everything was fine. Forgiveness is not theater. It is not denial. It is not pretending a wound never happened. So Amina simply said, I hear you. And that was enough for that day. Before Amina left for the capital, Baba Tunde called a family meeting. Not a dramatic one, not a public one, just the people inside the house. He sat on his wooden chair and looked at all three women carefully. Then he said something that changed the direction of that home forever. I used to think peace meant keeping quiet, he said. I thought if I endured, if I delayed, if I avoided confrontation, the family would somehow heal itself. But I was wrong. The room stayed silent. When I ignored small cruelties, they became bigger. When I excused disrespect, it grew bold. When I failed to defend the innocent, I helped the guilty become comfortable. Sade began crying again, but Baba Tunde continued. This house will no longer be built on silence. It will be built on truth. Then he turned to Zina. You still have a life to build. Stop competing with another woman's destiny. Find your own. He turned to Sade. If you want to remain in this house with honor, then become the woman you pretended to be when you entered it. Finally, he faced Amina. My daughter, I cannot return the years you suffered, but I can promise this. Never again will you stand alone while I am alive. Amina began to cry quietly. Baba Tunde stood, walked over, and placed his hand on her head just as he had done when she first left for school. This time, he said, go not just with my blessing, but with your rightful inheritance, your dignity, and the truth known by all. Months later, Amina was doing well in the capital. She wrote often. She sent pictures from training. She called Baba Tunde every Sunday. And slowly, the peace in her voice returned. Back in the village, change came more slowly. Zina began learning a trade. Not because life suddenly became easy, but because excuses no longer worked in that house. Sade became quieter, more reflective. She no longer interrupted when Amina's name was praised. She no longer reacted with bitterness when letters arrived from the capital. Regret had humbled her in ways pride never could. The relationship between them was not magically perfect. Trust, once broken, heals slowly, very slowly. But at least now, truth was no longer hidden. And where truth is allowed to breathe, healing has a chance. As for the land Babatunde transferred, he kept his word fully. It was documented properly, witnessed properly, secured properly. Some villagers still called it shocking, others called it wise. But Babatunde never regretted it. Whenever anyone asked why he had done it so publicly, his answer was simple. Because some lessons must be loud enough to protect the next child. So what is the lesson in this story? It is this: jealousy does not just hate another person's light, it also darkens the heart that carries it. Silence in the face of injustice is not peace, it is permission. And a hard-working child should never be treated like a threat simply because they refuse to waste their life. Amina was locked outside on the night she should have been protected. She was humiliated when she should have been celebrated. But in trying to stop her destiny, her enemies only exposed themselves. Because what God builds through discipline, character, and perseverance cannot be destroyed by bitterness alone. And Babatunde's decision shocked the whole village for one simple reason. People are used to hearing parents say they love their children, but they are not always used to seeing a parent prove it when it costs something. If this story touched you, remember, the right door will still open for you, even if the wrong people once locked you out.